record. I'm just gonna... Hi, this is Moza Jacobs for DeBarra Spoken Word. And this is ahead of our next event on the 14th of May 2025, when we will do something we've not really ever done before, and that's a stage reading of a play written by Kieran Doyle. It's called Smugglers, and I'm here to talk to one of our they're all stars, actresses and actors, Leen Maarouf. And Maarouf, I hope you pronounced that right. And Leen, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and tell me first, who are you, where are you from, and how did you arrive in Ireland?
All right, yeah. Thanks. My name is Leen, and I'm Palestinian refugee from Lebanon. I grew up and I was raised in Lebanon. My grandparents were ethnically cleansed from Palestine in 1948, so we don't have a right to return. I moved to Ireland 3 years ago, and ever since I've been digging into my own identity deeper and deeper. I write my own music. I've been gigging around. Most of my music would be around my identity and belonging. And I've done gigs as well with Irish bands, and just embracing that fusion of Irish music and Palestinian traditional music. Um, so yeah, I'm trying to find myself here, and I'm part of um, this play now called The Smugglers. So I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, and we're excited about your participation. How did you end up in Ireland, by the way? Because that's not really close to
Um,
Lebanon.
so Palestinians in Lebanon don't really have a right to work. We're barred from working from over 60 professions. So the only way out for me was to get myself a student visa, really. I don't have a passport. I have a refugee document, but the refugee document is based on a Geneva Convention, so it does help me if I'm taking on an education path. So I had two options, either Ireland or Canada. And then politically speaking, I had to go with the option that felt safest for me. And Lebanon, I ne would have never felt safe because there's a lot of racism when it comes to being a Palestinian in a refugee camp in Lebanon. And it's really political and historical, has nothing to do with the people themselves. It's systemic. But yeah, I just decided then to go to Ireland for this reason. I did my master's here, so it was through education mostly. And now I'm here. I am working and I'm doing my art at the same time. So yeah.
If you say you're doing your art, you're doing visual art as
I
well.
do visual art as well. Yeah, I have my own project set up. It's a really small side project, but I do my own hand drawings, and I do a lot of screen printing. And actually next week, Lavid Gallery in Cork is going to exhibit one of my screen
Oh,
prints as well. So I do visual art. My goal in the future is to merge the visual aspect with my singing. So have a visual experience while I'm singing as well. Just I do think art is an experience. So the different aspects of storytelling are really important for me. So singing, I play a bit of piano, I do visual art. I love poetry as well. I would have been more of a poet before I started singing in Ireland. So yeah, all art is great really for storytelling.
okay. I didn't know that about the poetry or about the visual art. Did you study art in Cork?
I actually did not study art. I studied women's studies. So I did it's about my thesis was about refugee women's activism in art in Lebanon during an Israeli invasion. But so it would have been very political. But I've been an artist all my life. That's the way I actually express my emotions. So just been my own creative bubble, I guess.
Okay, well, you're very creative because I've also heard you singing, and not just in Arabic, but also in Irish.
Oh yeah, I try my best, but
Well, it
try not to
sounded good.
butcher it.
Actually, I heard, because I think you're also going to be singing in the play, isn't that
Yeah,
the idea?
that's
Yeah,
the plan.
yeah,
And I think it's Anya O'Gorman
yeah,
who is working on the music piece. So yeah,
yeah.
did
But you're
a
going
some
to
singing.
sing? And actually, when you were singing before the one time during a rehearsal that you did it, I did think there was a lot of similarity in a way with at least how you
Mm.
sing with the Irish kind of, I don't know what it is, the thrillers, the
I do,
ornament.
I do hear that from a lot of people. They call it the Irish keening. It's that pain that comes out. Like when you're singing, it's like Irish keening. It's like mourning something really. But the trills as well, yeah. There's a lot of actually similarities between the Irish language and the Arabic language in terms of pronunciations and letters.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very interesting actually. I do think there needs to be study around it somehow.
Yeah. Do you actually speak Irish or only for singing
No, no,
work?
I don't. I don't. I
That would
just
be too
learn
hard.
I just learn the context of the music and then I learn the lyrics and then I just sing it. I don't speak Irish, no. I would love to speak Gaelic though.
It's it's
Um
it's a bit of a
yeah.
study. Um,
Yeah.
and because I think you said you had been studying or been doing some theater in Lebanon as well. You have been acting
I've
before.
very, very little experience really. I did screenwriting and playwriting when I was in college. I studied journalism and then I did creative writing as well. So I would have touched on a bit of acting and a bit of writing as well. I acted in a play back in Lebanon, and that was maybe my first play, and it was a really minor role. And I did a lot of short films. So more on TV,
Okay.
less on stage. But yeah, still, it is still a passion of mine anyway. And I'm really excited because that's technically will be my first experience really um on in a somehow not really a small production, you know.
Okay. And because actually the play is going to be directed by or is being directed by Nasser Al-Swirki, who's we've had before in the boroughs last year, and he has all sorts of ideas of or plans to introduce different sort of art forms like singing,
Mm.
dancing, fighting, maybe juggling if people can do it. I'm not sure about that, but
Yeah.
I have the idea that there is a bit of a difference between Irish approach to theater and the Arabic approach to theater. Would you know anything about that, or is that
Um, I think I've watched different Irish plays. I think the Arabic perspective, in my case, growing up in Lebanon, the theater that I'd be going to and watching Arabic theater would be completely around political issues, very social issues that you witness day to day life. And that's most of the time the topics that people would pretty much focus on, which is very realistic because it is rooted in reality and experiences of people. Um, I maybe way less if it's like I wouldn't have watched loads of fiction or loads of um like most of the time it would be based on the context of the local context that you're in. Um I wouldn't know much really. I just know that the Arabic dialect and the emotions and the language that you use in Arabic has way more complicated, like it's more complex in a way. Like you'd have different ways of expressing things, but then if you're just using the English language, it's very limited in terms of expression and in terms of trying to really express your emotion,
would
like
you would that
happiness
does
and
that mean? Sorry, okay, I interrupt you now, but
no, no, go on.
no, because you just started to maybe explain it. Because would that mean that there are far more different words for to express a certain emotion?
Yes, like the one word could be used in completely different contexts, and it could be sarcastic, sad, happy. It depends on the way you're actually and your the way your tone, like how you actually say it, or even the language, the words themselves. Like in English, there's one word for happy, and that's really happy. Or if you want to be like you find any other words, it's excited, so on. But happy itself in Arabic could have at least 50 other words, or love, the word love would have at least 70 other words. And it depends on the different levels of love.
Yeah,
Um, So it's very interesting in that sense because it's way more complex, in my opinion. But both theaters they're different, but they all have their kind of own um, ways or different approaches that are also, important and very special in their own ways, I guess. Well, yeah.
So do you think there's a difference in the intensity of the emotions expressed?
Yeah, I think so. Because when you have different ways of trying to express your emotions or deliver the emotions, you have more freedom, you have more space to actually embody the character, if that makes sense. It makes you less like if I'm reading a sentence, I could interpret it in so many different ways, but then when a certain emotion is specifically being expressed in a sentence, then I know exactly how that character is feeling, and then it's easier for me to embody it. But that's not, 100% for it's certain, but it it just shows that there's different ways of delivering emotion. Um, yeah, and of course it depends on the character as well and how you relate to the character. So there's different aspects to it. It's not just the text itself.
Okay. Your um your character is still under development, I believe. It's still being developed. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And what would I mean the subject of the play is immigration, immigrants on their being smuggled into Ireland. That's basically what it is. And did that subject, that topic attract you, or would you have done it?
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. I relate to it on so many levels, but not just me. I think it's a universal topic because how many times do you hear stories of refugees being smuggled, whether it's in a dinghy or a truck, and wearing a life jacket, risking your lives, putting your life in danger because you have no other choice, and paying the money of your life to be able to get to
Yeah.
another country. So it is a universal story. You hear a lot of people sinking and those dinghies, dying, risking their lives, putting their lives under risk in terms of rape, in terms of it's not really an easy experience, and every person on that dinghy would have their own trauma, their own baggage, their own story, and they're all kind of uncertain of their destinies because you don't have control over your destiny. You're going to, I don't know where,
Yeah.
but you're going somewhere, hopefully, if you get there. But you have nothing to lose,
It's a
and
very
that's,
scary situation. I mean, I now realize, through this play that how uncertain it all is. I mean, people once
yeah,
people have arrived, they know they've arrived, but when they're on the road, they have no idea. They have no
they
idea if
have
they.
no idea. But because they've left nothing, they have nothing left.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to the nowhere, but they don't care. They just their hope is safety, I guess. And it's a very universal topic,
It
it's
is.
happening everywhere, really.
Yeah.
Unheard stories of those refugees, at least.
Yeah.
Um, and really powerful for those who made it. These are the stories that are being told if they're given the space to actually talk about them. A lot of refugees out there making it really heroic.
And your own grandparents, where did where was their house, and how did they get to
So
Lebanon?
so it was so I'm from Acre. Um, it's a city in Palestine that's currently considered within Israel, so it's not inhabited at the moment. But they actually traveled by foot, so it's a different story. Not easier, but imagine being displaced. I'd say my grandmother has been displaced at least easily 20 times, over
Wow.
her. She's 96 now, and she has
Wow.
been promised to return to her homeland. She's 96. She's never returned really, and she still has the key to her house.
Oh, yes. I
Um,
heard that. Yeah.
and my parents grew up in Lebanon as well. We grew up in the different refugee camps. So, my grandmother was displaced again last year. But imagine the reality of being displaced over and over again, traveling by foot,
And that
for
was
most time.
was that because of the Israeli invasion in Lebanon, or was it?
That's because of the Israeli invasion in Lebanon. I mean, in Palestine, it was 1948 as the Nakba. It's when Palestinians were ethnically cleansed. Technically, not really for the first time, but it's advertised as the first time because Palestinians were being brutally murdered before that. Uh, but yeah, it was because of um, um, basically Israeli brutality and ethnic cleansing. And they're bombing, they'd bomb, ambulances, everything. So you don't really have an option to travel by any other way. So they'd be traveling by foot,
How long would it
carrying
that?
nothing with them, leaving everything
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it is. They'd just be going with nothing with them.
And does your grandmother live in a house or in a tent?
So the situation has changed over the years because a lot the Palestinians have so much like since 1948, we're in 2025, the situation would have been tense at the beginning, and then the Palestinians then took on the role of actually building small cement blocks. So they built their own houses eventually with time because you get because this is your temporary home, really, and you want to make it as homely as
Yeah.
possible as you can. So they try to work on it. So now the refugee camps are actually cement blocks of one or to two floors, um, loads of electric wires dangling, very dilapidated alleyways, very tiny, very like unlivable, really. But yeah, a lot of Palestinians are still locked in on those camps, and a lot of them would be isolated, um, and the Lebanese state wouldn't really interfere in the camp. So if there's a crime or anything, they have no business whatsoever. The Palestinians are considered foreigners, um, just shoved aside, really,
And
legally as
does
well.
that mean that you can't leave the camp?
Um, you can leave the camp. It's not a concentration camp. Um, but very limited rights. So legally, you can't work. Legally, you can't have ownership over any kind of houses or businesses or whatever. You don't have a passport. You're limited in terms of even at some point we had like when we are lined up in the airport, for example, Palestinians have lived who were ethnically cleansed in 1948. Would have lived in Lebanon for ages, so they have legal right to become Lebanese, but they are not. So in the airport, we're lined up in the foreigner section rather than the Lebanese citizens. So we are not considered citizens. So really barred from every single right. So you're not treated as a human being, basically. You're
Yeah.
not seen, you're not heard.
And if you
You're
can't
not
work, how can you eat? How do
um
people get by?
exactly. So most of the time it would be through black markets if you're working for someone in a local shop. Um, um, or if you're working with, let's say, the Palestinian Crescent Society or anything under the um, anything that is related to Palestinian agencies like UNRWA schools. Like my mom would have been a teacher in an UNRWA refugee school, for example. My dad has been a nurse in the Palestinian Crescent Society for years and years, carrying people, on his back and finding way through during the wars, different wars of the camps. Um, and a lot of other Palestinians don't really work. And how do they? It's really a complex situation, a very systemic injustice. A lot of other Palestinians would be in my case where their children found a way to get out, whether through boats, by the way, because a lot of them would have been human trafficked because they would have thought that they're going to a country, but they're not. They pay a lot of money, but then um, they'd be human trafficked. But a lot of the time, the parents are rely on their kids who end up traveling, studying abroad, and also Palestinians in general, in terms of statistics as well, speaking, would have highest levels of education. A lot of them leave their countries, they find a job, they study well, they find a job, they make money, they send it back to their parents back home.
Yeah.
So this is how it really works. Or through agencies, like UNRWA, but even now they're cutting funds to UNRWA, so the situation is becoming harder and harder.
Yeah. Wow, Leen, that's a lot. That's a whole backstory that I didn't know anything about. So it's very, very, very personal for you as well, the
Yeah.
stories. But if these are Syrian immigrants and it was a couple, I think he wrote it a couple of years ago, Kieran. Kieran is a historian. So it's more based on how it was before, but how it was before in Syria, and now it seems to be getting a bit better. Hopefully, that is going to continue.
Well, we
But
don't really know.
we don't know.
Maybe not, maybe
Yeah.
not.
And even so, I mean, it resonates so much now, I think, with people that, the stories of what is now Palestine there, even much more, well, the stories in Syria were pretty bad as well,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it just continues. It's just a different.
Yeah, I mean, Syrians do really share the same struggle in Lebanon as well, and there's a lot of racism towards them as well.
And
So
if you
it's
look
not
at
any difference.
what happened in the country and how it's all been destroyed, that
Yeah.
resonates as well. Okay, we live in a weird world. Anyway, the stage reading is on the 14th of May in the bar Spoken Word in Clonakilty in West Cork. And then, all being well, we will do a full play in Skibbereen on the first weekend of October as part of the West Cork Feel Good Festival. So that's with full setting and full costumes, etc. But we'll make this look nice as well, I think. There's plants underfoot. Okay, Leen, thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you perform. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.